Part 2. Kamikaze smiled confidently. Nothing is beyond the powers of a master escaper, she assured them. You can't keep a bog burglar under lock and key. No prisons can hold us. We're as wriggly as eels. So why are you still here then, if you're such a great escaper? Said Fishlegs. I suggest that we wait for my father to send a war party to rescue us, said Hiccup. He didn't send a war party to rescue Toothless, Fishlegs pointed out. Yes, but I nearly persuaded him to, replied Hiccup eagerly. I think I really got through to him. And I am his son, after all, and not just a dragon. Toothless gave him a respectful bite. He'll come. I know he will, said Hiccup. I think I'll just sit here and wait for him. And Hiccup sat down on a stool by the barred window that looked out over the sea in the direction of Berk. It was raining, a dull, never-ending sort of rain that would have you soaking wet in 2 seconds if you went out in it. He'll come, I'm telling you. But Hiccup was anxious. His father had been so disappointed with Hiccup's report. Maybe his father thought that Snotlout, who always got 10 out of 10 in everything, would make a better heir than Hiccup. Maybe his father was relieved Hiccup had gone. Maybe, just maybe, his father wasn't coming at all. Back on Berk, Chapter 13. Back on Berk, Stoic the Vast sat in front of the table in his chiefly hut, with his head in his hands. A chief feels no pain, he was saying to himself over and over again. A chief feels no fear. A chief is above mere weak personal feelings. But oddly enough, this didn't seem to make him feel any better. There'll be other suns, he said to himself, and the wind howling across the ocean and through the wet bracken and blowing open the doors in a flurry of rain seemed to call back to him. But not like Hiccup. Oh, what kind of chief am I? He thought to himself wretchedly. Grimbeard the Ghastly would never have hesitated like this. Grimbeard the Ghastly would know it was the bog burglar's fault again. He'd have been over there bashing those bog burglars all the way to Valhalla by now. But then he caught sight of the Roman helmet, and doubts started to creep in. Could it possibly be that Hiccup was right, and that the Romans had found their way into the inner isles and were trying to make trouble? Sighing, he picked up the piece of paper sitting on the table in front of him. On it, he had written, Plan A. Sail to the land of the bog burglars and start bashing everybody. He picked up the quill, dipped it in the ink and wrote, Plan B. Send a war party to look for a Roman fort. But which was the right thing to do? Being a chief was a lonely business. Chapter 14, Kamikaze's escape plans. For the next week, Hiccup sat by the barred window, looking out for his father's war party. Toothless came and sat on Hiccup's head. This was a familiar ritual to both of them, as it was Toothless's usual seat when Hiccup was dragon watching at the Wild Dragon Cliff. Hiccup would draw and write in his Dragonese book, while Toothless perched on his head, one eye shut, the other half open, watching out for careless rabbits or small mice that he could catch. They could sit there for hours in happy, companionable silence. Now they sat looking out the window, searching for the boats that were not there. They were being held in a barred tower room high in the air. The one good thing about being held prisoner was that they didn't have to go outside, because outside it was raining. And it wasn't your ordinary, average kind of spitty little rain, but rain such as you only really get in the barbaric archipelago. It was one of the wettest places on this good green earth. For the whole week it rained, as if the sky above was one big, endless bucket of water, pouring down without stopping on the poor souls beneath. The Romans are excellent travellers, but they are not used to this kind of weather. Nobody is. Hiccup watched with interest from his tower window high above as the soldiers' training grounds turned into one big puddly mess of black mud. The consuls' heated swimming baths overflowed into the horses' exercise yards. The kitchens were knee-deep in water. Even the tower itself seemed to sink a few centimetres as its foundations softened and oozed. The one good thing about the rain was that it silenced the screeching dragons being held prisoner in the giant cages down below. Dragons tend to sleep through rain. Their skin is waterproof, so they put up their wings like umbrellas and they sleep underneath them. Inside the tower room, although it was bare, it was at least dry. The young Vikings were allowed to keep their swords and shields to practice for their appearance in the arena on Saturn's Day, Saturday. A soldier brought them food every day, and there was lots of it, although it was all a bit too rich for Hiccup's liking. Pig, stuffed with dormice, stuffed with baby frogs, carbonara, and oysters fried in cream, is a bit of an acquired taste. They all refused to eat it when it was fried dragon pie or communal gardens in batter. Toothless hardly ate it all. Hiccup tried to persuade him, but Toothless put his nose up. "Roman food is yucky," he said. "Too much garlic. Want some good fish. Want mackerel." Kamikaze carried on with her escape plans. They were all completely crazy. For the first one, she persuaded Hiccup and Fishlegs to help her knit their waistcoats into 2 ropes, and she attached one end of a rope to a fish head and the other to one of the bars in the window. She then spent 3 nights in a row throwing the fish head out of the window, hoping for a passing dragon to catch it. Finally, her patience was rewarded when it was snapped up by a hungry gronkel who flew off with it, the rope pulling out the bar in the window before it snapped. Kamikaze squirmed out the window and down the rope, which dangled 20 metres above the ground. She held on for as long as she could, but eventually had to let go and landed on a fat soldier playing dice under an umbrella with a dozen fellow soldiers below. They were then moved to another, supposedly more secure cell on the ground floor. Well, she did pretty well, didn't she, to get out of that first cell? Kamikaze wasn't about to give up with this little setback though. She spent 4 days tunnelling her way out of their new prison with Hiccup's helmet. Unfortunately, the tunnel came out right slap bang in the middle of the consul's bathroom. A naked, fat consul screeched for reinforcements, and they were moved back to the tower room again, where the window had been repaired. Her third plan was the craziest of all. She ambushed the soldier who brought them their food every day, knocking him out with his own food tray. She was planning to wear his clothes to pass herself off as a soldier. "It'll never work," said Hiccup. "You'll get caught. You're a girl for starters, and you're only 4 foot high. There are no 4 foot high soldiers. They don't let them in the army." "Oh, you're always bringing up problems," grumbled Kamikaze, putting on the soldier's helmet, which was so big she could hardly see out of it. "And let's face it, they're going to be really cross you knocked out one of their men," Hiccup pointed out, looking at the soldier slumbering peacefully in his Roman underwear on the floor. "Why don't you face it?" snapped Kamikaze. "Look at you, staring out the window all day long. Your father is never going to come." Hiccup flinched. "He'll come," he said defiantly. Kamikaze had to turn up the sleeves of the soldier's shirt 4 times. The tunic trailed some way along the ground behind her. She looked like a very small military person in a wedding dress. "The great Kamikaze will be back home, guys, while you are facing those gladiators on Saturn's Day, Saturday." She took 3 steps and fell flat on her face. The boys tried very hard not to laugh. With great dignity, Kamikaze got back onto her feet again. She picked up the front of the tunic like she really was a bride. You can't keep a bog burglar under lock and key, she said, taking the keys from the tunic pocket and unlocking the cell door. With a final bustle of skirts, she was gone. Hiccup looked out the window again. He'll come, said Hiccup. The rain was being blown through the window at such a rate that he had been driven from his usual post. But now he peered through the bars, seeking for the sails that were not there. There was only rain and more rain, pouring down relentlessly on the ocean, drumming on the rocks, sogging up the heather, and filling the pockets of the poor sentries as they stood, sandals full of mud, dreaming of Roman sunshine. The wind shrieked across the ocean, up over the grim black cliffs and through the Roman courtyards of the fort, and as it came through Hiccup's barred window, blowing in great drenching streams of water, it seemed to be answering, "But he's late." Kamikaze didn't return that night. Hiccup and Fishlegs wondered with amazement if she really had escaped this time, but the soldier who brought their food that evening very grumpily told them that she'd been caught within 2 seconds of leaving the tower, and she'd been put into solitary confinement for 3 days. Solitary confinement means you're on your own. "Serve her right, little barbarian," said the soldier, rubbing the lump on his head. 3 days, said Fishlegs excitedly. "At least we'll have some peace and quiet round here." "Kamikaze's all right, really," said Hiccup. Said Fishlegs, unconvinced. "She's very pleased with herself and she never stops talking. I'm looking forward to a nice, quiet night." There's a picture of the Roman soldiers looking particularly miserable. If you've grown up in Italy, that sort of weather and climate in Northern Europe would be very hard to adjust to. Okay, I'm going to stop there, and I shall see you tomorrow.